I remember just telling them, I was like, if it was possible for me to stay here and be happy, I would. But it is easier to be uncertain and leave than to stay here in the middle of a pandemic. I was going through it. Guys, it's been a hot minute, but I'm back. Ooh. We like her, but it's very messy in the background. I apologize. I thought this would be the best video to start with, just to describe basically the past 2 years of my life. I'm actually surprised because I'm actually pretty excited just to be back on YouTube and like talking, and like I didn't think I would be, because the past few years I just haven't felt motivated to create content in the same way that I did, and I will tell you the entire story of like why and how and everything, but I just didn't think I would be like excited again. And it's a different kind of excited because I feel like I'm back on YouTube to talk about things that are actually, the things I've been posting are important, but the things I want to talk about are also really important, and they're real and they're honest and they're raw, and I think it will help people who are young and just now getting into the job market, just trying to figure out who they are, trying to be authentic, and at the same time take risks, but go take risks for the things that they love and things that are important to them. So I just wanted to talk about it, and I want this channel to be a hub for people like me who just have like this natural romanticization of life, but we have big dreams and we think things are possible, and we want to show people in the world that we can be happy and they can be happy too. So yeah, let's just get into the stuff, okay? So I thought I would, instead of making notes, I thought I would just go back into my like pictures to see what I was feeling during this time. So as you guys know, no, you don't know. I don't know why I said that. I would say about 2 years ago, I quit my corporate job, and I think from there it has radically changed my life. That was probably around the last time I posted on YouTube. So if you go to my last video, I think it was like in March or something. I actually, yeah, of like 2020, I don't remember. Officially in October of 2020, I ended up quitting my corporate job. I wanted to talk about this for so long just because I felt like it was such a huge piece of my life. I just didn't feel comfortable during the time to just go into detail. I didn't have the wisdom or awareness to be able to articulate what was happening and why I was doing it and all that stuff. So 2 years later, I think I can recap what's happened. I quit my job, and yes, that is the main point, but it was not just the quitting of the job that was critical to my life. It was the process and the journey I went through while quitting my job and after that really had the impact. So I kind of like sum it up when I talk to people like, oh yeah, I just quit my job, but really it was just like this emotional personal journey that I went through. For people who are watching this or interested in this subject, you might be thinking, because I was watching people on YouTube talking about quitting their job, and you might be thinking, there's something different between me and this person on the screen that allowed them to do this or made it possible for them to do this. And I'm not 100% sure, but I can almost guarantee you the feelings that you're feeling are the feelings that I was feeling, and that 100,000 other people are feeling before they quit. It's like you're just scared. You don't know what to do. You have fear. You feel like you're gonna be broke. You don't know what the next step is. I think coincidentally, I went through this during the pandemic, even though most people were kind of having an aha, like, what am I doing? I don't know. How does my job actually tie to what makes me happy? I know a lot of people are going through that, but I think I just happened to go through that during the time. COVID had an effect on it, but I think the person I am, and I'll talk about like what I've always wanted and my vision and my passions and wanting to be entrepreneurial, I think it would have happened anyway. It just I think it was expedited by COVID. So let's go back to when I quit. So just to give you some background, I went to business school in Dallas. I went to UT Dallas in the DFW area. I majored in supply chain and marketing. I would say my whole life I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought just because I like to talk that I wanted to do law. When I thought about it, I actually cared more for the talking part and just being able to express myself than the actual law. So I thought it would be unethical to go down that route. And so I ended up just doing business in college, because I thought, during the time I thought I would be a lawyer, but I was like, if I don't find a job, I can fall back on my business degree. So I ended up doing that, supply chain, but I originally started with just supply chain. I didn't really love it. I didn't have a passion for it. I just kind of went to it because I knew I didn't really want to do finance or accounting or a lot of the other business degrees. And for some reason, even though I always loved marketing, I thought like it was just too silly to go into. I don't know why. And eventually I ended up graduating. I did a lot of marketing related stuff during my college years. I was like an Amazon Prime student ambassador, and like I worked for my on-campus like activities board, like planning events, like all of my interests were obviously marketing, but I kind of just ignored it. And I was like, this is not like, you know, real life. You could probably only get a marketing job doing grunt work, and I didn't want to do that. So I went into supply chain, and I ended up working for a telecommunications company. I interned there. I did full-time there. I think I did the internship for about a year, and then I worked there for, or I think it was a year and a half. And then I worked there for, I would say 1.5 full years of full-time work, because when I was an intern I didn't do full-time because I had like 16 other jobs, which is a story for another day. That's kind of the background of how I got into there. It was a supply chain internship and role that I applied for, and I think I was just so excited to work and show up and do anything and make money that I was just happy to be there. It's kind of shocking how I got the role and the job I did, because it was a very technical, like I'm talking Excel, like, okay, not very technical. I know there's a spectrum. My boyfriend is data science, so there's definitely, this is not the most technical, but for me, this was very technical. It was like Excel, SQL, kind of coding, analytics, all that kind of stuff. And I hated math and science. So, you know, put two and two together, it doesn't add up. Ended up applying because literally, I kid you not, I thought that my manager at the time, I thought she dressed really well. See, this is what I'm saying, like the things weren't adding up. I thought she dressed really well, so I was like, wow, this is the place for me. Like I loved her skirt. And I remember when I was doing the job, I would just be focused on like the dashboards that we were creating. I'd be focused on the colors and the branding, and like, it's just funny looking back now how much I just wasn't aligned with my actual job. Corporate was a very interesting experience for me. I think I loved it up until I didn't, literally. Like I think I came in making a good wage, and I was just excited to like be on my own. I graduated and I wanted to live on my own, so I could afford a place that I really liked, and I lived in a really cute city. I just romanticized the idea of being like Carrie Bradshaw. Like, you know, like I wasn't actually thinking about the job. I was just thinking about all the things the job would give me so that I could like go prance around. After I had worked there for about a year, I would say, that's when I started to feel kind of bogged down. So I started there in June of 2019, and then around March of 2020, obviously that's when like Corona started becoming a very like serious thing in the US. During that time, coincidentally, I had been chosen to do something cool for all the leaders within the organization, and kind of put together this cool little strategy session for all the leaders. It was the kind of thing where different teams in the department had like a star player, and so they would choose like the star employee, usually like a lower level employee, to plan like a strategy session for the leaders. I was chosen. Of course I was thrilled to do it, but looking back, it was just kind of like a lot of work. But fast forward to the actual strategy session, we actually got to go to the strategy session, and I really think it was supposed to be a thing where like the lower level employees were planning it, and I don't mean to say like lower level, I just mean like literally we were lower in hierarchy compared to the people we were planning this for. They were like 3 or 4 steps above us, and so that's why I say that. Like managers, like VPs, things like that. So we were planning this thing for them. Come the day of the event, it's like an all-day thing. I felt exhausted, by the way, just because I think I was just so tired planning the event, because this is on top of our day job. And I remember, it's ironic because we had this values exercise by our HR team, our people team, come to that was part of the day, like plan of events for that day. And they gave us this list of values and we all picked them, and then we were all supposed to go around the table and read them. And I remember everybody was just picking values that were just like, I don't remember exactly what the values were, but they were all so serious. They were like strategic, or like discipline, or like family, honest, trust. Like it was just like these big serious words. And I only realized that after, of course, I picked mine. Like I had picked like creative and fun and like freedom. Like those are my values, right? Like those are my top 5, because you can only pick like 3 or 5 or something like that. And theirs were all like so serious. And I know this because they were all reading theirs in a row, like around the table. And everybody's was very similar. Like they almost had identical, or like at least they had one value that aligned with someone else's at the table. And even the people like in my level, chosen from the departments, like they also had very similar values to everybody else. And I was like, oh my gosh. Of course I was the last one to read mine, and I just remember reading like fun, creativity, like freedom, and just feeling kind of like, wow, like how is it possible that no one else at this table has like not one of mine? And then after that we had to give like a little presentation, and I remember just like looking at everybody from the podium and all the leaders and VPs, and I just remember thinking like, I just don't ever want to be one of these people. Not like them personally. I don't look up to their position, and I don't necessarily want to be who they are. I don't want what they have. It was kind of like an intrusive thought, but I was just like, wow. Because at the time, remember, I was like delusional. Like this other life didn't make sense to me. And I was like, wow, why would I think that? And I remember that day, and the next day I literally had to like work from home the next day. This is before work from home was like normal. I just remember being so exhausted and my head hurt, and like I just felt physically unwell. And I don't know if that was just like a sign from God, like this is not for you, but I just felt unwell from that event. And I remember feeling very confused and having a talk with one of my mentors, who she's still my mentor. I love her to death. And telling her like, why do I feel this way? Like it was the first time I had felt such a distaste for the role and what I was doing. So that was just the seed. That was the seed of where it all started. And then I would say soon after that, it was March of 2020. So that was still March of 2020 when all of this happened. And then probably like 2 or 3 weeks later, I remember we had gone into lockdown, and so all of the companies were like work from home. So we had been working from home for about like 2 months, like strictly from home. I thought it was great originally. I was like, yes, like I don't have to go into the office. This is like another sign. Like I was thrilled to be working from home. Like I didn't want to be in the office, and really because I just didn't have to put on a show anymore. I didn't have to put on this whole mask to show up. I remember like most times when I'd go into the office, my body, and like this is from when I started my internship to the day I left, like my body would just go into these like chills almost every time I go into the office. Like, and at first I thought, I was like, I'm excited, I'm just nervous to meet people. But like looking back, like to have chills like that every single day I go into the office is kind of weird. And like before COVID, we were going in like almost every single day. I thought I was nervous or excited, but that would happen every single day. So when I heard we were working from home, I didn't have to do that anymore. I didn't have to put on a show. I didn't have to talk about the weather. Like I didn't have to pretend to like have interest in my job about analytics and numbers and automation and things. So like I like automation, but like in a different way, you know what I mean? Like this was kind of like an amazing thing for me. Once we went into lockdown, I just went right into creating. It was so much of just work and home. Like there was no distraction. So like for instance, in our office, like we had like a Starbucks, and like we were in a town center, so we could always go out to lunch. Like there was a lot of distractions distractions. And I had friends and like I could walk around the campus and everything, but being at home, there was no distractions. So it was literally me and the job. And I hated the job. I would come to every meeting just like scared that I was gonna like lose my job because I didn't know what I was doing. I literally had no idea what I was doing. And I was like technically a consultant within my role. And I was supposed to be consulting people on data and I had no idea what was going on. Like I had a clue, but it wasn't what it should have been. I shouldn't have been consulting anyone. I can consult you on what colors to pick, but I still had to do the job. I still had to get on a lot of calls, and this is the beginning of COVID. No company knew how to like make the transition from like in office to remote. So we were just having the same amount of meetings, but like at home, like the same work style, but at home. So we were having constant meetings. Like I remember one day counting, I had 13 meetings in one day. I don't even understand how that was physically possible to do. Again, it was like a mix of like one-on-one, a little bit of group, or like a team, like a all employee meeting or things like that. But why do we it's just beyond like that's a whole other thing. On a good day, I had about like 5 to 6 meetings. On a good day, it was a lot of work because I was supposed to get my work done in those meetings. And I just remember like days where I would just literally wake up like 6 a.m. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. because we also worked with like global teams, so we would have to get up at different times. I remember waking up like 6 a.m. sometimes, literally pulling out my laptop from my bed, like underneath my bed, because I would hide it at night because I didn't want to see it. I would pull it out from under my bed and just get to work. And then I would be working until like 6 or 7 p.m. And I don't know if everyone had that situation because again, I had no idea what I was doing. So it took me like extremely long to figure out what I was doing during the day. Like I had to, I would be staring at the same Excel sheet for like hours. Like I just didn't know what to do. None of this stuff came natural to me. I would have to do like trainings. I would never get to it. It was just a mess. Like looking back, I would have meetings throughout the day. And the reason I would get up so early is because I needed time to work or prepare for the meeting. It was almost like I was doing more work preparing for meetings than actually getting the work done. So nothing was actually happening. I would just get put on all these projects that to my coworkers sounded so interesting. Apparently to them, like they seemed to like this stuff. It sounded so boring to me. Like I was almost just trying to skate my way out of every project. So this is post March. So this is like April, May, June, July, during that period. It was just awful. So the only solace I had was creating on YouTube. I would just put a bunch of makeup on. I would get in front of the camera and I would turn it on and I would like start talking, and that was my place to like feel better. And on Instagram, I was definitely in my influencer era, like trying to have like my influencer moment, which failed, and that's another story. But I also started on like TikTok. I was just making videos. Like I was kind of making headway. I was like reaching out to brands, tagging brands. It was kind of giving me some action, some feedback. So that's why I was also really enjoying this influencer life. But on the flip side, during work, I was just so depressed. Also during that time, our team had lost team member, so a lot more work had been put on me, which I kind of felt empowered by initially, but I quickly realized that that was not something to feel empowered by because I didn't know what I was doing. I was also kind of getting feedback and like praises from my team for doing such a good job, and I was like, finally, like I finally have an idea of what I'm doing. I kind of am doing something right. That quickly led to burnout because I was doing a lot more of something I hated. So, and then I would say June and July, that's when I was really starting to see my soul just like leave my body. This was during COVID, so you know, we're not going out a lot, but I remember our friends were over all the time. And I remember during these hangouts, I would literally like I would just, and not even tell them, I would just like end up just retreating. Like I would just go to a different room and just go to sleep or like go on TikTok or something. I would have these moments of, it's the weekend, I'm having fun, but a thought would come into my mind about work and I'd be out of it. I was depressed. Like I didn't want to do what I was doing, and even thinking about it just ruined the present moment for me. My boyfriend, he was doing his PhD at the time, and he would talk to me about his work, which is obviously very similar to the work I was doing. And I would tell him, like, I literally cannot talk about this because I don't want to think about work. I want not, like, when I was not working, I did not want to think about it, like, at all. But I would always have the Sunday scaries, like the anxiety of like, oh, I should get this thing done, because if I have this meeting at 8 a.m., I need 3 hours before that to like stare at my screen and pretend like I have a clue of what's going on. So I remember July 4th, so this is kind of the turning point that weekend. I remember thinking, okay, you need to do something about this. I don't know what to do, but you need to do something. And I was like, I was really gung-ho on like, I need to pay off my student loans. Like, I didn't have too much like at the time. So I was like, I can just work really hard for 1 year and I can pay them off and I can leave. The literal next day, I don't know what triggered me, but I was on TikTok or something. I looked at my boyfriend and I was like, I can't do it. Like, and he's just like, yeah, I know you said you know, can't do it. You're gonna stay for another year and then, you know, leave. And I was like, I don't think I can even do another day. I just remember it just hitting me like a ton of bricks. He was always very supportive of like, just quit, because if it's hard, you'll figure it out. And I was very scared and I was like, no, like, I live on my own. The only thing I didn't pay for was my phone bill. So I was just nervous that I'm like, what am I gonna do? I haven't even started in marketing. I don't even know what I like to do in marketing, because I knew that was obviously the direction I was going in. But my content wasn't necessarily like exploding. So it's not like I was like, I can go straight into content creation. Like, how am I gonna pay the bills? And he was just like, you'll figure it out. And we always figure it out. If you put yourself in a situation where you have to survive, you'll survive. And I just remember thinking like, easy for you to say, like, I can't just do that. I just knew at that point I had to make a decision about leaving. I kept thinking about it for another month. I would talk to people about it, my mentor, my friends. I got a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people told me to stay and not quit because it was COVID. No, everyone was having a hard time. Everyone was having a hard time at that time to find a job. And I was thinking like, yeah, they're right. Like, you know, I'm young. I'm like 22, 23. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first job. I haven't even worked a full like 2 years here. Maybe I'm being crazy. But I just knew I didn't want to do it. And what's funny is I didn't even want to apply for other jobs. Like, I remember a lot of people were like, just apply for other jobs and, you know, then you can just hop over to the next thing. And I was like, but here's the thing. I don't think I even want to work for someone else. Like, that's the problem. Like, I'm tired of having to put on a show and pretend and fake things. And everyone suggested the whole 9 yards, transfer to a different department, work in the marketing section of the company, which honestly wouldn't have been much different because it's more internal marketing. Everyone was like, apply for another job or stick it out, and nothing was sounding appealing. And who was I to say like, no, right? Because I didn't have a lot of options, but I just knew that this wasn't just coming from not liking the job. It was just the sense that like, I've always wanted to be entrepreneurial. I've always wanted to have my own business. I've always wanted to have something of my own. Like, going back to my values session, like, my value is freedom. Like, I love feeling free, and working for someone doesn't give me that kind of autonomy that I want. July and August, I was heavy contemplating, but I knew I was gonna leave. Like, I just knew it wasn't gonna last. I wasn't gonna make it a full year. So by September, I muster up the strength to tell my manager, because I felt like I would give her 1 month notice, but everyone was like, that's too long. So I did it, and like, I gave her like a 3 weeks notice. I told her that day, it was around Labor Day, that I think I want to leave. No, I didn't tell her I think, and that's another tip. Don't say you think. Like, you're doing it. So I told her I want to leave. I will probably leave by the end of the month, so the end of September. I mean, like a good manager, she tried to see what she could do, if there's anything that she could salvage. She needed some time to think, kind of send the message upwards. Our managerial team kind of got back with me on like, maybe there's another option, or maybe there's another way, or just kind of like talking me into staying in a way. I appreciated it. I felt like they kind of valued at least my work and who I was as like an employee, but I couldn't do it. I was very honest at the time, and I didn't know why I was being so honest, because honesty is not something you do in corporate. But I even remember telling the VP, like, this is just something, it doesn't make me happy. And it kind of felt good to be unhinged and just like say exactly what was on my mind, because that was so not the case that you, like, that's just not something you do often there. I actually stayed an extra month. They were trying to see what they could do for me. Probably trying to keep me longer, just to, you know, so they didn't have to lose an employee. But I stayed for an extra month trying to look for another role that could work. Nothing ended up really coming into fruition, and during September and October I was just getting more and more sure that I wanted to leave. Ended up leaving on Halloween officially. It was very anticlimactic. I like turned in my laptop to my manager. I remember also before leaving kind of giving everybody like a 1 or 2 week notice that I was like leaving, like the whole team that I was working with or the teams I supported. I had a lot of people tell me, don't leave, you need to find another job here, you're never gonna find a job anywhere else. Like, you know, older people telling me this, and as a younger person, I was very like, oh my God, maybe they're right. But I remember just telling them, I was like, if it was possible for me to stay here and be happy, I would, but it is this, I feel like I have no choice. It is easier to be uncertain and leave than to stay here in the middle of a pandemic. So it's easier.